Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Tuesday. It's September 13th. This will be our chart listing for the day, and another really nice downtrend today. Before I get started, I did want to touch base on a subject or an issue. It seems that there was some kind of issue with the rollover dates. I never got anything specific from NinjaTrader, and I never got anything specific from my broker either, so I'm a little disappointed that somebody didn't let us know. Maybe they didn't realize it themselves until people started calling in, but it appears that their rollover date was wrong, and you could actually go in and change this, and that fixed the data issue where it didn't look like there were enough bars. I mean, this morning by 9:30, I maybe had half as many bars as what you see here now, so the correction will fix your data. And there's a video, somebody sent me this, thanks to another trader for sending me this video that walks you through it. It's pretty easy to do, it takes about 30 seconds, but uh, when you get a chance, write down this address here. Let me make it a little bigger. I think I can make it bigger. Maybe you can see it. But just make sure you write that down if you're using NinjaTrader and want to be able to make sure your data is correct. But there's a video right here on YouTube that will walk you through it, and it took care of my problem, and it seems like I'm not the only one that had that problem as well. So I'm glad I didn't trade yesterday. I traded this morning, and it didn't seem to affect my trade. I just didn't have as many early on as I would have probably normally had, but you definitely want to be trading with the correct data. So yeah, I'm a little peeved that nobody said anything about it or pointed it out. The only way I found out was people started commenting on my video yesterday that my data looked different than theirs. It sounds like some of you had less bars than I did. So I don't know specifically what the change in the date in the rollover did, but it does change something. So make sure you correct that problem. And again, the video is right here. It gives you all the steps. So, all right, I'm going to back out. We'll go through the video or through the trades. You can see it's a nice two-tiered down channel. We got a break here and a new low, and it looked like we were going to reverse out of there, and we ended up just going. We came back down, and we really were just kind of going sideways the rest of the day through the close. You can see the rest of the day slightly uphill, but I'd call that you can see we're swinging back and forth above and below the EMA. That's you can still trade that even if you got an uptrend or a downtrend. When it's like that, you can trade both sides, so just keep that in mind. But really, we were finished by the end of the day there, so it didn't matter. But let's back out here again, go through the trades, and wrap it up for today. First trade I saw was a short right here. It's a second entry. Actually, it's not really a second entry. I take that back. Notice that we've got a new low here, and there's a first entry. There's a second entry right here, but this was way too early before I got here. So we push down, we pull back, and it gives you another shot right off of that trend line right there. That confirmed that trend line. And you really could treat this like two legs. It's a little difficult to see. If you drew a trend line here, you probably wouldn't get a break and so forth, but I was really trading off this one. But the main thing is it's a confirmation of that trend line, and we haven't made, there's actually a trend line working down through here, and this is the first close outside. So we're still trying to make a new low here. So that was the reason I like that one. And it is a second entry counting off the high, because there's your first move down, pull back your second move down. Nice bearish bar right off the brown trend line. And you probably wouldn't have had this midline in here yet. But you didn't need it because we were really trading this brown channel at that point. So moves down. We do get a new low, and then you get a little back out of here. I made this one green because you're so close to the low of the day, and that's the overnight low. Notice what happens. You've got a new low here, and you pull back. You got a little first entry, and then you pull back. So that's a second entry short, first of all. But then secondly, this is a little range right here, little congestion area, which is just a range. And if you draw that in, it's a little failed break above that. And you can see that there it fails above. And this is a downtrend, so we're looking for reasons to get short. It's not directly off the EMA, it's close enough. So there's some reasons to like that one. The reason that I did make it green, though, is because it's so close to the lows. And you're really taking a chance of going short right in there. So notice that little gap right there, right where that horizontal support is. I see those over and over. I point them out, and it seemed like there was one somewhere else here with the main trend line or something. If I can remember where it was. Well, anyway, if I see it, I'll point it out. But I see those quite a bit. You know, you don't want to trade off those or anything like that. But a lot of times, if you're not sure if your trend line or your support and resistance line is right, if it runs through one of those gaps, that's just kind of, and everything else looks right, it's probably a good indicator that, yeah, you're on the right track. There was another one here. This is almost a repeat pattern right here of this little setup. Notice that you shoot down again, and then you kind of go sideways, and you get another little second entry. But again, it's right in that low. It's a fairly bullish bar. It didn't break higher either. So, you know, even though that's technically a second entry, there's just too much congestion there. We've already had a break. Well, we didn't have a new low yet. So you figure it's probably going to try to push lower because that's a pretty strong down move there. So actually on this break, we did have a new low in place already. But if you're looking at the brown one, that's the first break of it, and notice it's two legs down, and we didn't have a new low yet. So, you know, you could argue to go short there, but I'm not even going to make it green because I just think it's too risky. So, and then of course we bounce, but we never really get. This is technically a reversal pattern right here, so you might have considered going long there, but I just don't recommend it. It's not. Even though it's a reversal type pattern, we never got a tick lower down here, although we did try to go back twice. So technically it's close, it's real close. I mean, we could give it green. I'm willing to do that. I'll give that one a green one because we are looking for a possible reversal here, or at least a correction. And so, but you're going long right into that, and it did go lower first and then break out the other side, so you could have just put a stop there when it was started heading back up and go long, and it would have been a quick, easy move. And it's tempting to go short here. I really wanted to go short, but notice how there's a gap, that gap there. That's why I like that. So if you had that on your chart, your data looked right. You know, those are tempting, and you hate to pass them up. But we didn't have a break of this trend line here, this little channel working up. So you're taking a chance on that one big time. And then we start working down, and notice how we push through the EMA, pull back and test it. Again, you don't get the other break higher over here, so it's technically only a first entry. But it's right off that trend line, and it's a pullback underneath the EMA. That's a reversal type pattern. And so I like that one. And then you actually get your failed break higher here for your trap. And look how bearish that is. So I like going short right there again. It's close to that low. So you might have let it break lower and use a limit order. And had you could have gotten filled all the way back up into right in here. And that, just make sure, the only thing you really need to make sure of is you got enough room to get out before that low. It didn't matter in this case, but you still want to follow that rule because next time it will matter and you'll take a loss. Again, this is like a little breakout pullback short from this area here. It's just a big bearish bar. You got to go short at the very low of the day. I don't recommend it. It does give you a little higher low here, more. But we're just kind of going sideways again. And so even though it would have worked, I think you're better off to skip it. And then we rally again. This is almost a repeat pattern of this. Um, so you might have considered going short here. There's plenty of room to get out. It is a second entry, but I mean, notice it tests that line multiple times, but we didn't get a new high, so it's not a great setup, but there's some reasons to argue for it. So I'll give that one a green one. I think you're much better off to wait on this trade, and look what happens. You pull down, you get a first entry long, pull back second entry, and it fails. And look at that big bearish bar. Just go short right there, and that's a quick, easy move down. And we've got another new low. At this point, you should have been able to find this line by drawing it. You really could have had it by this point, but you really wouldn't have confirmed it again until it bounced here. So once it bounced here about 7:30, 8 o'clock, actually it's a little after 8 o'clock, I think, when it bounces here. Just drag that up. You may not know exactly where it goes, but by the time it's bounced down through here a couple of more times, then you're pretty sure where it's at. So, and that's why I like that trade right there. And then of course you get a new low, then pull back first entry, pull back second entry, another big bearish bar on a second entry, another easy scalp, pulls back, and it gives you another chance to go short here. But again, it's right into those lows, too much overlap, so I'd skip that one. And notice how these lows are getting further and further to the right and further away from this line. That tells you that it's losing some momentum. So when we push through right here, that's not a surprise. And it makes a little double top, and you kind of go sideways, and then you get another little failed break higher there, and that's a second entry counting off that low. So I like that one. If it wasn't for this failed break higher, by that time that moved up a little bit, I would not mark that because we weren't quite back to the trend line yet, but it's been all downhill. You're going sideways, you get that failed breakout, you're probably going to come back to the other side here, even if you're going up there, and you might get a failed break down here that lets you get, you probably wouldn't want to take it at this point. Notice how most of these are shorts, and that's because the overall bias is down, and so I think it's too risky to be buying down here, even with a pretty good setup like right here. You had some pretty good evidence that there's support across there, and even if you moved it down to here, you can still see that failed break, and you get a fairly bearish, bullish bar, but the market's just been too bearish at this point, so I don't recommend that. It bounces again here, and notice that swing low is lower than that one, so you got a new count. Pull back first entry, pull back second entry, so that's a second entry short right off this major trend line that you should have drug up here to the top of this swing, and that's just a clone of the one off the bottom. And so when it touches there again, and again, you could treat that like a failed break higher. This would have moved up a little bit here. And notice how it's a failed break higher. It's a turn down off a possible trend line. It's a big bearish bar. It went higher and then turning down the low side. I like going short there, and you would have caught a runner, and you could just ride this one right on down. There's another little breakout pullback short right here. We never broke higher, so this is just a first entry long. It's first break higher. But it's, again, this is like a little spiking channel. Notice how it spikes down and you get a little channel going here. And I just drew that off those first couple, and it kind of fits here at the bottom. So that's how I found that. But this is not really your confirmation. This is just the second touch. And it's so close to those lows, but, you know, you can see it tried to go higher here. And on a smaller chart, it probably is a failed second entry long. I gave it a green. It's a breakout pullback short as well, but I just think it's way too risky. I'd skip that trade. It would have worked, but again, it's just not a great trade. And then look what happens. We get an overshoot here, and what does that usually lead to? It usually leads to either a break on the other side or a reversal, one of the two. And in this case, it gives you the break on the other side and a second entry short. Notice that new low, pull back first entry, pull back second entry, and look how bearish that bar is. Just go short right there. and it drops on down. Another quick, easy move. And again, we don't get to the low, and it gets back above, and there's a failed second entry short right there. Notice that new low, pull back first entry, then it kind of tries to push through second entry. And you do have a little trend line working up. But again, I just think it's too risky to go long when we don't have a break of this main trend line yet. So I didn't mark that one. You could almost go short right there. You actually could go short. I didn't mark it. We have a close outside there to new high, but we weren't quite back to here. Technically, I should have probably marked that one, looking at it after the fact. It is a second entry. It's not a second entry short, but you do have a break of this trend line, close outside, a move to a new high. It's not a completely bearish bar. So again, it probably should be at least green, because you do have room to get out on that one before you get to the lows again. And it really is kind of a repeat pattern from back up here again. We had one similar to that. So, but notice what happens. We start going sideways, and then it finally gets back up here and touches the trend line. And it's also a failed break higher here out of this little congestion area. So it's not a perfectly bearish bar, but it does close in this lower half, and it is off the trend line. It is a failed break higher, so I like that one. It's good for a scalp, a little bit more than a scalp, and then of course it reverses. And now you got your break of your trend line. And there's actually another little channel working up through here. You can see the line there. For some reason, it's not down here. I don't know if I deleted it or moved it or what earlier. And it's tempting right here to go long, but it's right into that trend line, and you see how it hesitated right there. So I would have never gone long there. And then it breaks on out here, and you get an overshoot of this channel. It's going sideways, but it's also working higher at the same time. So you got two patterns going on there, and then it's inside the bigger pattern. So this is kind of no man's land, where I think you're better off just to wait and see what happens. You might have thought about going short there, but again, you don't have any break of this yet, so I think you're better off to wait. And then notice how we push on down. You get a first entry, and then it pulls back. It doesn't break higher here, but notice that trend line right there, and look how bearish that bar is right there. I like that one, and at that point, I would measure that move down, and I'd look for a measured move if it starts heading lower again. And you can see we had almost a perfect measured move. It might have went one tick further. So I like entering right there. And then this one, I would have liked it better if it would have broke higher, but it's still another bearish bar, and this gives you the second entry short right here, because that's a new low, pullback first entry, pullback second entry. But I treated this one like a failed second entry long. Pullback first entry, then there's another correction, second entry, and it fails. So that's the reason I kind of like that one. I guarantee you they trapped some longs right there that don't recognize that this is a reversal pattern. Look how far away we are from the EMA. Look how it just goes right on through. It doesn't get a lot of hesitation there, and it comes right back and tests it, and it tests it twice. So you definitely got to go long, short there. And I like adding on to this first one. So that's a reversal pattern all the way. And then look for that measured move, and you know exactly where to exit basically. And then you get a reversal pattern on this side. Look what happens. You're way away from the EMA. But now we've got a break of the big channel. We've got two measured legs down. That's a good sign that we're probably going to reverse here now, or at least correct for a while. And look how it pushes. It finds some hesitation there at the EMA, and then pushes right on through, and then pulls back and tests it. If it would have broke lower, it would have been a failed second entry short, and that's your perfect reversal pattern. But this is close enough, so if you wanted to go long there, I like going long there. Turns out to be a really nice trade. And pulls back, and you do actually get a failed second entry short here on this chart, but it's so far away from the EMA and so high. It would have worked, but don't take that. you've already touched the high side here. So what's the good chance it's going to do? Go back to the other side. It does give that push up, and then it comes back and gives you a little double bottom here and a nice bullish bar. The reason it's not blue is there's a trend line working down, and that's the first closeout side, so it could push back down again. In this case, it doesn't. But that's the first break of your trend line. So I was willing to give it a green one, but you know, it's real close, borderline to being nothing there. And of course, you got your break and your new high now. And again, you're a good bit away from the EMA, but a lot of times you get two legs, so just I'd skip that one. Um, you know, you could probably argue for it to be green, but I think you're better off to wait and see if you get that reversal pattern. And look how it pushes down and goes through. You get a first entry long, pull back. Second entry long, it fails. And look at that big bearish bar. Just go short right there. And it takes off. And it really comes back again here. And you could treat this like a failed, like one leg and then a second leg and then another attempt to go higher. So but look, we're just going sideways. It's stacking up, at least one doji in there. So I didn't feel like that one was worth taking. But then you get another, it drops down and it comes back and confirms that trend line and gives you a big bearish bar right off that trend line. Notice how you got the EMA and the trend line right there. You got it right here too, so that was another reason to argue for that one to maybe be green, but I'm still not going to give it a green because it didn't really, I guess you could say it was a little failed break higher, but you got to go low on that, short on that one. But this one's a little clearer. You can see that resistance right across there. And that little failed break higher and a big bearish bar, but mainly it's the third touch and confirmation of that trend line. It's a little close to these lows, but that's not the low of the day. Your low of your day is back over here. And so you can make the argument, what you might want to do is let it break lower and use the limit order further back in to make sure you got room to get out. And you could have gotten filled all the way back up into maybe, you know, 2 or 3 ticks back into that bar, and that would have given you enough room. It would have worked no matter what. But you got to always keep that in mind about getting out before you get to the next low. This low is critical, but it's not as critical as the low of the day. So if that's low of the day, I say no way. And then it actually gives you a breakout pullback short right here. But again, we're just kind of going sideways. A couple of dojis in there. I'd skip that one. You finally get a break. There's one of those gaps. Look at that trend line coming down, and it gaps right over it. See that over and over. But it bounces here, pushes through. You're still looking for a new low though, and you do get a second entry short right here, but there's just so much overlap. That's fairly bearish all the same, so you could make the argument for that one to be green as well. If it had been a little more bearish bar, I might even say you could and really that is a fairly bearish bar, but it doesn't quite close on its low. So you could have even let that break lower and drop a limit order up in here. And if you did that, I'm actually willing to say that might even be red if you traded it that way, because look at the trend coming down. You could say there's a close here and a move to a new low as well, but you know, this might be a little bit higher than what I've got it, and then it's real questionable as to whether or not that's a close outside. So, but the reason I moved it down was because of that gap, and you can see how it does fit pretty nicely all the way up. And so that gap will usually help you out to figure out where your trend line should be. And so that's the reason I moved it down a little bit, but it's still questionable if that's a close outside. So you're still probably going to get another test of this low, and you can see that's exactly what happened. So it's another reason. And that gets you to the 2 o'clock hour. This one is real. It's pretty iffy. There's another thing here too I don't have on there. Oops. Notice you got a trend line working up through there, and you get a close and a move to a new high. So that's another reason why you're probably going to come back there. So But yeah, it was a really good trading day. Hopefully we got our data issue resolved. I'm going to leave this sitting up here a minute. Actually, what I'll do is I will put this, um, link down in the summary section too, just so you can click on it and go to it. I think it'll let me put it in there. I'm going to try anyway. So, but yeah, good trading day. Lots of trades. There were several runners here as well. So you should have an opportunity to make some money today. But if you didn't, study your charts and your trades closely. That's the key to this thing. Remember, trading alone does not make you a better trader. You can trade every day for years, and if you don't come back and study those trades and study your charts at the end of the day, you're not going to get a whole lot better. And it's amazing how many times I say that and people just don't listen, and they have to learn the hard way. So if you truly want to become a better trader, the key to this thing is studying. Get as much screen time, as much practice time as you can. But that alone won't do it. The key is to come back and study this chart and study all your trades first, and then just study the chart and see if you can notice where all the moves always, notice where all the big moves always originate at. The key entry points. I mean, it never fails. That's where they're always at. And there's a reason for that. So study that and figure until it makes sense to you. But I'm going to wrap it up for today. Again, I'll try to put this in the comments for you, for those of you that need to make sure yours is set up properly. But we'll be back again to do it tomorrow. But I'm out of here for today. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.